I just wasn't farting, having smelly farts as often, right? Just going to be honest, it was nonstop. And then I just noticed, wow, digestion's better. Then I noticed I used to get this skin condition as well. I used to get like a rash on my arm and on my back as well. And I noticed that cleared up as well. So I thought, wow. And then I started eating more red meat. So it's very strange, right? Because even knowing what I know and tuning into you and stuff like that, and that's even me, I still had this thing in my mind where it's like, maybe I shouldn't eat red meat more than 3 or 4 times a week. It was just like a subconscious thing. And then I was like, why though? It doesn't make any sense. So I started eating steak every day, basically. And then no surprise, it's probably one of the only foods you can eat by itself. And then I just started noticing, wow, everything leveled up. Performance, all the stuff I talked about, energy, mental clarity, everything kind of leveled up. And even muscle retention as well. I mean, I was in great shape then, but I'm just leaner now as a side effect, really, of cutting out probably stuff that was really inflaming my gut.
Okay, hey guys, happy afternoon. I know some of you guys are here this morning. Well, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out. You sound like you're somewhere in the southern regions of the earth. Where are you located?
That's right, down under, because you used to play rugby in New Zealand, right?
I did, yeah. I lived there from the early 1990s. I was over there playing, across the Tasman Sea from you guys, I guess. Where are you? Nice.
I'm based in Sydney. I'm based in Sydney, but I'm from Wales in the UK. Moved here like 6 years ago.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. Do you remember the rugby coach of Wales? Warren Gatlin, he coached for them.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I got on the field with Warren Gatlin. I played against him when I was there. He was one of the opponents. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that was.
He's a Kiwi, right? Yeah. What was he like to play? Was he a good player?
He was a good player. I mean, he was on the All Blacks. I mean, I was just visiting as an American. I was kind of filling out one of the club teams, and we played in the provincial stuff and. Yeah, I mean, they're all good. I mean, I got to play against several of the All Blacks, but
awesome.
I was, young and naive about it. I hadn't been playing that long, but it was a good honor to play against those guys. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're in Sydney, and thank you for doing this. I know this is some weird hour. I think was it like 7 a.m. or something like that? Something.
Oh no, it's just like 9 a.m. It's a good time actually.
Oh, it's good. Well, then I don't feel so bad for you. It's okay. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you do. I guess you're into health and fitness and nutrition, and kind of give us a rundown of who you are.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been a coach for a long time now, Shawn. So I've been a coach. Well, I started off as a personal trainer. I'm like 35 years old now, and I started off as a personal trainer when I was like 19. So I've just got a lot of experience with coaching people. Now I've got like an online transformation program, which I kind of developed when the pandemic hit actually. And that's gone really, really well. But in terms of my background, I used to play rugby myself, actually, always been into sports from a young age. As you may or may not know, in Wales, that's like the number one sport. It's just mandatory you play rugby, basically. So yeah, I played rugby up until I was about 26 or something. And then I got into bodybuilding then as well. So I got to the pro level as a bodybuilder, natural, never took steroids or anything like that. Yeah, and got to the high level and competed, with the world championships, got to top 10 in the world and stuff like that. And then moved to Australia. This is a very long story short. Moved to Australia then like 6 years ago. And just came here for a year and then basically ended up getting my residency and never looking back, really.
Okay. And so at what position do you play when you're playing rugby?
I was a back, actually. So I was like inside center. Oh, yeah. And then I switched to wing then towards the end, actually, which people were like, nah, you look more like a back row. But I'm not brave enough to play in the forward, Shawn, or stupid enough.
Maybe stupid enough. Yeah, sometimes some of us don't have choices based on our physique. They kind of like, yeah, you're a prop or you're whatever. I spent a lot of time in number 8. I actually quite enjoyed that because it's, your loose forward was sort of like a hybrid in between the forwards and the backs, and you get to run around. And
a lot of contact. Let's be honest, you like the contact, don't you? I like to fly out for breakfast.
I like to run over scrum halves and fly halves, coming around a scrum.
I thought so.
And probably most of us listening to this have no idea what the hell we're talking about. But
no idea whatsoever.
But anyway, so you got into bodybuilding, and kudos for you for doing it drug free. I've been a huge advocate of not taking drugs my whole life, and I still, even at 50, I just turned 56 the other day. I'm still training hard, and I'm still been, just doing it without the drugs, which I think is good. I mean, there's so many people now these days that have jumped on it. Young people. I mean, to me, it's gotten ridiculous, but. It's kind of the way it is. And so what made you, I mean, obviously, you're an athlete. I mean, that's probably hardwired into who you are. It's kind of like me. I'm always going to want to be an athlete, whether I can or not. I'm going to try. And then how do you get into from that to, I want to help people get better? I mean, what steered you that way?
Yeah, so it was just, I started lifting weights from the age of like 17 years old and just absolutely fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
And from then on, I just thought, right, this is something I need to do more of. And really, I just done my personal training qualification and then never looked back. And then it just got to a point then where I was like, right, how can I impact people more? And to be honest, as you know, it's the stuff outside of the gym, right? The nutrition, lifestyle, that kind of stuff, which really makes a massive difference on top of the training element. So that's when I kind of got into the online space then. And I've had a much bigger impact doing that, right? Because, maybe some of the stuff we'll touch on. But yeah, it was because of the struggles that I used to have as well, really. And as a bodybuilder as well, I actually ended up with basically a bit of an eating disorder, if I'm fully honest. For a couple of years, from the restrictive way I was doing things, and I competed so many times, didn't really have the knowledge of what I was doing, following a restrictive diet plan or whatever. And then I would just, go overboard on the weekends. And that was a vicious cycle. So the struggles that I face in terms of my relationship with food really helped me then, give me even more drive to actually help other people, overcome these kind of things really. But, and then I kind of 2 years ago, I transitioned into kind of eating more of an animal-based diet, which has been a game changer as well. But yeah, I guess it was my own struggles, long story short, my own struggles, and also just passionate about helping people. Let's be honest. We all just love to serve, don't we? So if I can get paid basically to stay in fantastic shape, then I thought I would capitalize on that,
Yeah, it's certainly, a lot of jobs are set up so you don't have the time to train, or it's so hard to do. And when your job requires that, it's kind of a benefit if you like doing that. And there is some level of, they call it orthorexia, where there's some people develop, even among very fit people, where they just become so obsessed with food and they struggle with that. And it's kind of, in a way I'm kind of like, well, that's interesting. But in another way, it's like, gosh, compared to most people who don't care at all. And they're just like, just whatever, I'll just eat whatever and I'll get fat as a house. I don't know if that's really a disorder, to some degree, but I guess you can take it to an extreme. What propelled you to go from Wales to Australia? I'm curious about what prompted that transition. Because and I don't know. I suppose when you're in Australia, everybody thinks you have a Welsh accent. To me, it sounds like you sound like you're a dude from Australia, but I don't know enough.
No. The accent is weird now for sure. Yeah, the accent's a bit of a hybrid now. Yeah. My friends back home, they say you sound Australian, but yeah, it was more for the lifestyle, Shawn, to be honest. I literally thought, right, it was something at the back of my mind because I traveled the world in my early 20s and I came to Sydney, loved it. And then it was just at the back of my mind for like 6 years in the UK. And you may have been to the UK and obviously the weather is just terrible, right? And it's just, what I realized since coming here is just like the type of people as well. And like the mentality in general, obviously not everyone, but in general, it's just like more positive people here. I guess the sun plays a part in that as well. But it was more just for, more opportunity because I was a personal trainer at the time. I thought, I'll go over there and just, be a personal trainer and enjoy that for a year kind of thing. And then it was a case of, oh, wow, this lifestyle, the weather, the beaches, and it's just worked wonders for my state of mind, just being around more like-minded people. Also, I had a few friends here from back home in Wales as well, which helped as well. So I came out here on my own. But yeah, man, it was more just for the lifestyle really. And just, cause it was something that I wanted to do for a long time. It was like a dream of mine to live in Sydney. And then obviously it's just hard to leave here. That's the problem. No one ends up going back, when they come from the UK, everyone stays here. That's the problem, couldn't be any further away from your family. But other than that, it was the best move ever.
Yeah. I remember I got chased out of New Zealand because I was overextending my visa that I had over there. And I fought the people there, and I'd never gotten to Australia, which is kind of interesting, but hopefully one day we'll get down there. But I found the people just to be really good people. They were hardworking, but they enjoyed life. They were adventurous. Most of them were fit. As you know, New Zealand has a really per capita tremendous number of high level athletes. They do really well in, whether it's rugby or rowing or sailing, or they've got some very phenomenal stuff they do. And, so I can see the appeal definitely. I was a little disappointed with some of the lockdown stuff that was going on. It kind of made me sad to see, particularly in Melbourne, that going on. Yeah,
that's another conversation. Bloody hell.
Yeah, sure. So hopefully that's past everybody because, I'd love to come down and visit one point. They got a lot of good animal products.
So much. And everyone knows about you guys worldwide now. But yeah, coming down here, definitely you could make a massive impact coming down here for sure. You should definitely. I know it's a long way to come. That's the only thing, right? And then you got to deal with the jet lag and all that kind of stuff. But it's worth doing, Shawn, for sure.
You do it for a long enough trip. You go down for a couple of weeks, and then the 18-hour flight is kind of worth it. But
yeah.
So tell me about. Obviously. So I guess we'll talk because I mean, this is sort of an animal-based carnivore-ish podcast, I suppose. Tell me about why you decided to switch from regular bodybuilding stuff into maybe a more animal-based style of eating, and how, have you utilized that with clients you're dealing with now?
Yeah, absolutely. I do utilize it a lot with clients, and it was mainly, so I went from, cut a long story short again, I was eating a lot of processed foods, like I say, on the weekends from bodybuilding and stuff like that, restrictive, probably didn't do it the right way. Other stuff going on probably as well, because our relationship with food normally just says more about our relationship with ourselves, right, than anything else. Anyway, long story short, then I was just eating a lot of processed foods on the weekend, and then I was getting lots of gut issues. Surprise, surprise, wasn't feeling good, right, overdoing it on the weekends or whatever. And then it got to a point where I was like, right, I need to make a change here because I was getting major gut issues. Then I just started eating, more whole foods really. And at the time, I was eating a lot of plant-based foods, probably about 60% plants, a lot of vegetables. I used to enjoy. I'll be honest, I used to enjoy eating. I was weird. I used to enjoy eating like broccoli, cauliflower, those kind of things. I used to enjoy them, right? And I started eating more, good quality animal sources and vegetables and stuff like that, and just more whole foods. And then I just started naturally wanting to eat more of those foods and less of the processed food. So that was a transformational journey for me. But then it was like really frustrating because up until about 2 years ago, I was still getting some issues with my skin and major gut issues. So I started slowly, obviously I tuned into you and was educating myself. So I started just slowly eliminating some of those more kind of toxic plants, right? Or, the ones with higher defense chemicals, like, the cruciferous vegetables. And the ones which are causing me a major problem, to be honest, personally, was potatoes. It was one of the worst ones for me in terms of my gut. So it just wasn't nice for my, my partner at the time and stuff with, anyway, won't go into detail, putrid stuff going on in the digestive system. And then eventually I switched over, eliminated those foods, thought, well, I'll eat just primarily meats and I'll keep my fruit in. And then I was just being more conscious and more varied with the types of animal-based foods I was eating, like even having some organ meats, bone broth, plenty more red meat, which was a game changer, good quality grass-fed, grass-finished, of course. And it was just absolutely life-changing for me. My gut issues went away pretty much real quick. And then I started noticing my performance was better in the gym. I was even sleeping better. Libido, was high anyway, but then after that, it was like ridiculous. All these amazing health markers, started really leveling up. And I thought, wow, okay, so let's keep this going and never look back really. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because, for the last 50 or 60 years, ever since I've been alive and probably even before I was alive, they started this message that red meat is bad for us. We need to cut it back. We need to restrict it. And here in the U.S., we largely have. We went from a peak consumption of about 92 pounds a person per year down to about 53, which is where we're at now. So we've cut it back by about 40%, and everybody is sick and everybody is fat. And then it's kind of funny. You start telling people, hey, eat a lot more meat, maybe eat only meat or eat mostly meat. And all those people start getting healthy and they get unsick and unfat. And it's like, well, maybe the experts were wrong. Could it be possible that the experts have ever been wrong before?
The thing is, though, Shawn, if they were just wrong, I don't think it'd be as bad, but it's the opposite though. That's the problem, isn't it? It's like opposite to what, do you see what I mean with a lot of things? So it's like people have been doing the opposite to potentially what they could have been doing to thrive. You know what I mean? So then it's like they have to unlearn. And I have this problem with clients, if I'm honest, on that topic, I think I mentioned this to Shawn last time. It's like everything's looking up. They're in the shape of their life, physically, mentally, everything, best shape they've been in their whole life, right? Physically, mentally, energy, everything. And then they'll go to the doctor and they'll tell them their cholesterol's a little bit high. And then they'll say to me, right, we need to change things. I need to eat plant-based. This is what I've been told by my doctor, because doctors have a lot of authority and they're amazing for so many things. But the nutrition advice sometimes from like GPs and stuff is just a little bit hit and miss in my experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think many of us overestimate and over-revere our physicians when it comes to certain aspects of health. If somebody, like I said, if somebody comes in with a broken femur, and their bone sticking out of their leg, yes, take me to an orthopedic specialist. But, when you tell me how to eat, they don't know. Honestly, they don't know any much better than the guy that goes to the gym, the guy that cares about their health. Most of them. There's some that are exceptions and pay attention to that. So I think we kind of put too much emphasis on the advice coming from physicians, particularly when it comes to eating, and especially and perhaps healthy behaviors. And, you mentioned your diet was 60% plants. That is the standard American diet is about 70% plant. Granted, much of it is highly processed, refined grains and added sugar and oils and things like that, which is, I think most people would agree is garbage. But regardless, we don't eat very much animal products, even in the United States where we're supposed to be over consuming it. Most of that is, a lot of it is dairy, drinking milk and things like that. All that's gone down, and maybe it's more cheese. But as far as eating actual red meat, we don't eat very much. The average American's eating about 2 ounces of beef per day. And Australia is probably very similar when you look at the overall population.
That's
numbers.
right.
And it's a shame because I think most of the problems we see are related to not consuming enough high quality food. And I think we just we're so scared of meat that we because we're still hungry and we're not satiated by eating, spinach, we start eating the garbage to fill up for that. And if we just eat more meat, we would probably need less of that other stuff. So you said you had some gut issues and some other things. So how did that change for you?
That changed simply by just noticing, first of all, I don't mean to be, crude, but I just wasn't farting, having smelly farts as often, right? Just going to be honest, it was nonstop. And I eliminated all the cruciferous vegetables first. And then I was still getting some issues. It improved a lot. So broccoli, cauliflower, kale, I used to eat copious amounts of those, right? I was that guy basically. So I removed them and then it started improving. And what I noticed then was just my digestion was better. I wasn't feeling as bloated all the time. You know what I mean? Like it felt like my stomach would be swollen like once or twice a week. And I'm like, this is super frustrating because I'm at a good level. I'm preaching about stuff, but I'm still not able to fix my gut. You know what I mean? And then when I started taking out the potatoes then I left them in and I was just still getting issues. When I removed them then, what I noticed was I just basically wasn't like my stool was just more consistent. Basically, it was just not consistent. It was like not healthy and then sometimes healthy. You know what I mean? And then I just noticed, wow, digestion is better. Then I noticed I used to get this skin condition as well. I used to get like a rash on my arm and on my back as well. And I noticed that cleared up as well. So I thought, wow. And then I started eating more red meat. So it's very strange, right? Because even knowing what I know and tuning into you and stuff like that, I still had this thing. It goes to show, right? And that's even me. I still had this thing in my mind where it's like, maybe I shouldn't eat red meat more than 3 or 4 times a week. It was just like a subconscious thing. And then I was like, why though? It doesn't make any sense. So I started eating steak every day, basically. And then no surprise, it's probably one of the only foods you can eat by itself. I wouldn't recommend, obviously, but, probably not get a nutrient deficiency. Started eating that, pretty much more of that. And then I just started noticing, wow, everything leveled up. Performance, all the stuff I talked about, energy, mental clarity, everything kind of leveled up. And even muscle retention as well. I mean, I was in great shape then, but I'm just leaner now as a side effect really of cutting out probably stuff that was really inflaming my guts and probably just naturally eating less as well because I eat less carbohydrates now. I don't eat rice at all anymore now. It's just literally meat, fruit, and that's pretty much it. So that's all the things that I really noticed change. There's so many things I could talk about, but that's in a nutshell, really, if that makes sense.
No, it certainly does. And I know, like I said, this is World Carnivore Month, in case you're unaware. I mean, I'm trying to get the word out there, but
I'm aware.
And so every year for this, I go straight red meat and water. And the rest of the year I'm eating eggs and a little dairy and stuff like that. And I literally always feel my best, this time. So I think it really is truly such a powerful food. And I think, the removal of all this other stuff, a friend of mine, Stan Efferding, who's, I don't know if you're familiar with him, the big bodybuilder guy, and he has a vertical diet. And the reason I talked to him about why are you adding rice to the diet? What is the purpose of that? And he says, really the only reason for that is to stimulate appetite, because we know that, and we know from, numerous studies that carbohydrates tend to blunt our satiety of, hormones. And so we feel like we can eat more. And so if you need to gain a lot of weight, if you're providing nutrition advice for the world's strongest man who needs to walk around at 350 or 160 kgs or whatever, you gotta eat a lot, and it's hard to do. I struggle to eat enough meat to put on a lot of weight if I wanted to. But you're starting to look at 3+ kilos a day, which is a hell of a lot of food, and you just can't eat that much. You can't sustain it day in and day out. You might be able to do it for 2 or 3 days, and then you're like, oh man, I can't do it again today. So there's 100%. That, yeah. And so so you've got this. So tell us about the evolution of the. You said you started an online deal because and a lot of people were, they were trapped in their homes and they can't get out. And, in Australia, I know some places you can't go more than 5 kilometers from your house or something. There's all kinds of craziness going on. How did that, what was the impetus for starting that online thing? Obviously we're online here and I get it, but what did it mean for you?
Yeah, so I already had like a handful of online clients. So I was a PT, basically. I was a face-to-face PT. And then I had a handful of online clients, but I had like 5 online clients. And then the pandemic hit and I thought, right, this is an opportunity now because I could see how much, potential there was in terms of how many people needed help, really. You know what I mean? So I thought, right, let's utilize everything you know and everything you've learned with nutrition and everything else and behaviors and whatnot, because it's very hard as a face-to-face PT. I did get some obviously fantastic results, but you're seeing them say 2 hours a week, and it's like, what are they doing for the other 23 hours of the day, right? So you see them for the 1 hour, what they're doing for the other 23 hours, and you can't always monitor that. But the way I do things now with the app I use and everything else, and how I hold people accountable, and obviously teach people more, basically educate people more, because they've got, they just got more resources and stuff like that. It's just been way more beneficial. And the drive for me to do that was just to be able to actually impact more people, obviously create more freedom for myself as well. So I didn't have to, necessarily turn up and work for money, so to speak. It'd be more like, online, and give me more freedom to travel and everything else. But yeah, mainly it was just for the impact. And then obviously when the pandemic hit, it was just like, right, this is a big opportunity. And, I'm very, very passionate about, like yourself, about actually helping people, transform the way they think, feel and perform, really. So, yeah. And as I say, I've had better results within the last kind of 3 years than I probably did as a decade as a personal trainer, right? Because it's like the nutrition elements, getting people to be more aware of what's going into their body first and foremost. And then really just the lifestyle stuff, because we all know, sleep and stress, for example. I'm always paying close attention to those two things with my clients and getting them to be aware of it as well. They're the two big rocks, right? I'm sure you would agree with optimizing sleep and managing your stress. If one of those two things are out of whack, then everything else is kind of out of whack. You know what I mean? So just shine a light on those things, and being able to utilize, what the journey I've been through and actually help people more, basically was the main driver for me.
Yeah, for sure. What is your typical, who are your clients? Is it anybody and everybody, or is it people that are kind of average, out of shape people, middle-aged people? Or are you looking at athletes, or who are you mostly working with?
Generally, it's like it's the people I kind of attract and take on are people that are already at quite a good level with their training and stuff, and they're just generally just ambitious people. I've got a lot of successful kind of entrepreneurs and business owners and whatnot, high performing people really who just really want to unlock their true potential and get to that next level. That's the type of person I attract. Some people I've got who are just, gem pop, just average day-to-day people. But for the most part, 78 to 80% of my clients are like high performers, who really want to get to the next level, who've been just kind of like stuck for a long time and not, maybe seeing their body respond like they'd like to, and not really optimizing things in terms of the stuff I mentioned about with nutrition, sleep, stress, not really having the, the know-how or really getting the results that they want, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you've got somebody that's already kind of, they're in the gym, they're trying to get healthy, they're maybe reasonably healthy, and they just want to, go to maybe a more productive level or a better level of physical fitness. What are the typical things you're seeing that people are not doing correctly that you're adding to that outside of, you tell me to get good sleep, go exercise, eat well. Where are you typically seeing people falling down?
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to the relationship with food and the types of foods they're eating. And the big one, as you probably heard time and time again, is just the protein target, right? It's a simple thing. A lot of people are already hitting the protein target, to be fair, people I take on, because I said they're already at a good level, but a lot of people are not. The majority of people are, what people think is high protein basically is actually not high protein, if you see what I mean. People are like, yeah, I'm having enough protein. And then when you shine a light on it, there's some value sometimes to just tracking protein, for example. I'll get them to track their protein for a week or track their calories for a week. And then when they go, oh, actually, I'm grossly under eating protein, or at least there's a few days a week where I'm not hitting protein. And the other things then are like sleep is a big one as well, because a lot of people think that sleep is just something that just happens. You hit the pillow and that's that. Yeah, I sleep great. Everything's great with my sleep, but they've never actually had that awareness to, come away from blue light, maybe wear some blue light blocker glasses, do some deep breathing before bed. You know what I mean? Focus on getting some daylight in the mornings. All these things, which are really quite simple on paper, but just getting people to implement these things, can be challenging sometimes. So I would say consistently hitting protein, optimizing sleep is a big one. And then, there's a few others as well. The other one then is like perfectionism as well. A lot of people I take on, this is a common thing. They want to be perfect with everything because they're like high performers. They're like, right, give me the plan and let's go kind of thing, right? But we all know it's all about that consistency more than it is being perfect with everything, especially with nutrition. So it's having people have that understanding that actually, if you're like 85, 90% consistent with your training, your protein target, getting good sleep, you're actually going to get life-changing results. You know what I mean? But the training programming is a big one as well. A lot of people are not training properly when it comes to strength training to maximize results, So that was quite a lot, but they're the ones that come to mind, Shawn.
Let's talk about the protein targets, because some people will say, well, what do you mean by that? How much is that? How many grams per kilogram or grams per pound? Or does it vary? Or do some people have different needs at different stages of life or particular goals? So what are your thoughts around protein targets?
As a general rule, I would say, you know, 2 grams per pound of body weight is, not in pounds. Sorry, in pounds is 1 gram per pound of body weight is kind of a good metric for most people. Now, a lot of people, ideally, I want them hitting more. For example, like I probably have on average about 1.5 grams of protein per pound of my body weight. So I'm hitting about 300 grams a day over 2 meals, no problem, all meat. But yeah, that's a general rule for most people. I think if most people, like if they're looking to build muscle and level up their physique, if they can consistently hit, you know, 1 gram per pound of, I would just say total body weight rather than confuse it. You know, you can go into the science and say per pound of lean body mass, but if you just say per pound of your weight, it's kind of hard to go wrong if you're consistent with that, if you're looking to build muscle and really just kind of optimize everything. Because when you're having that amount of protein, I would say a little bit higher, maybe 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, it really blunts your appetite and it really stops you from eating the other stuff. It's like if you're not hitting protein, generally what I see is you're replacing the other calories then with more fats and carbs, right? And it's a lot easier to overeat then as well when you're having, you know, certain types of fats and carbs. With protein, it just really blunts your appetite, as everyone here is aware of, right? So that's a big one, you know?
I know there are people out there that'll say, you know, because you mentioned 2 meals, and that's pretty much how I do it. I'm usually, and I'm very similar. I'm getting 300, 350, sometimes 400 grams. And I'm 260 pounds right now. So I'm 123 kilos or something like that. Some people will say, well, it's best that you space your protein out 3 or 4, 5, 4 meals a day, basically getting, 40, 50 grams per pop. Are you worried so much about that? Or you just make sure people get enough in the day and that's good enough?
That's a great question, actually. No, not at all. It's very much splitting hairs. That's the way I tell my clients. I'm like, that's just completely splitting hairs. And the thing is, it's a very strange thing because you see this in like certain studies and stuff. And then you look at like the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry, and you look at the serving size in like the average protein shake, and it's like 30 grams, funny enough, right? And what you see in a lot of the research, not to say, it's like conspiracy or anything, but, 25 to 30 grams, they say in research to have every, I think it's 2 or 3 hours or within 20 minutes after training. In fact, I find this actually, and there's some research as well on this now in terms of, eating, 2 to 4 hours after training, but it's personal preference. And that's what that comes down to, personal preference. So it doesn't make any difference. Whatever's going to keep you more consistent with hitting your protein target, I don't think really it makes any difference in the grand scheme of things. When you look at the big rocks, like consistently hitting protein, meal frequency is just really down the bottom of the list, and it comes down to personal preference. So I would say it doesn't make a blind bit of difference really when it comes to body composition and really getting results, and just overall health, right? As long as you hit that target.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much what the literature supports. I mean, it may make a small difference for those people that are like maybe somebody at a top level bodybuilding competition might find they get this 1% difference. But again, you talk about the big rocks, and I always talk about that. Why are you worried about this minutia? And you don't even have the major basics in place yet. And
100%.
Most people do that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about training, because this is something that I think there's a lot of different opinions on, for sure. There's no doubt about it. And again, depends on different goals. Like I'll often be chastised for doing an exercise because it's not the way a bodybuilder would do it. I'm like, well, I'm not bodybuilding. I'm not trying to bodybuild. But I mean, what are your thoughts on how we should implement strength training? What are the things there? And I guess, obviously a 90-year-old woman who's, kind of somewhat bedbound is going to have a different goal than a 22-year-old male athlete. So how do you walk that line? Or I guess we'll just focus on your average client, who they are and what they need to do.
Yeah. So that's it. And obviously, like you just said then, or alluded to, it really depends on what the goal is, but there's always it's kind of the same concepts when it comes to you like maximizing results. And really, let's talk about, with strength training, longevity, heart health, keep going down the list. When it comes to overall health, it's actually been proven time and time again to be better for the heart, for example, as well, even better than cardio for the heart in terms of reducing the 2 types of fats, whereas cardio only tends to reduce 1 type of fat. So it's actually better for bone density, longevity, and everything else. I wanted to get that one in there. When it comes to getting results, definitely frequency. So this is a big thing where people kind of come undone with, a lot of people anyway. It's just not hitting their body parts frequently enough. And again, when you look at the average person, or, people listening to this are probably, everyone's probably growth minded, so they might be at different levels, but it is a case of hitting the body parts more frequently for most people. Now, for example, I would say 80 to 90% of people will benefit more from training the full body, because you're hitting every body part then, at least 2 or 3 times in a week. So if you were to do, say, 3 full body sessions, you're hitting every body part then 3 times in a week. Now, with the muscle building signal, it kind of dies off after 72 hours max. It's normally at its loudest at about 24 hours, let's just say. And then it kind of dies off after about 48 hours. So if you're doing like the average bro split, like a lot of people do chest one day, arms one day or whatever, you're only hitting the body parts once in a week. So you're not maximizing results. So I think that frequency is really important, which is why I say full body works better for most people, not just from a science standpoint, but for consistency as well. Because, the average person is not really going to train for the rest of their life with strength training, like, 6 times a week forever, the average person. A lot of people listening to this probably do. But 3 times a week, full body, I find people can be more consistent with that, long term, and they're going to get better results. But then it comes down to intensity as well then. So it's like, when you train the full body, what are intensities? You may be doing 1 or 2 exercises per body part. And you're really focusing on those compound movements, as I've seen Shawn on his page constantly doing the compound movements like deadlifts, all those kind of things, focusing on factoring those functional strength movements in deadlift, squats, bench press, overhead press, and really going back to basics and doing those lifts, which really get you bang for your buck on a regular basis, and hitting the body parts more frequently. And then, as I say, intensity is really, really important, because I find a lot of people either they do more than they need to. So spreading the volume out has been shown in studies to be better, basically, right? So if you were to do like chest, let's say 3 times in a week, right? And you were to do it on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, let's say you did 7 sets per session. Let's just say, for argument's sake, you did 7 sets, 21 sets over the space of a week, has actually been proven in research to be way more effective for building muscle, as opposed to what most people do. They hammer that body part and they do, like, say 21 sets in one session, for example. It's not as effective. Spreading the volume out, sending that muscle building signal more frequently is actually a game changer. So I think that's a big one. And I think there's one more as well. Is like training to failure is another one as well. So always stopping 1 to 3 reps short of failure, ideally. So you've always got 1 to 3, really good reps left in the tank, rather than going to failure every set and then compromising technique, which is obviously the biggest one, right? Really focusing on technique and actually focusing on the mechanics of each of those movements is obviously really going to be number one. You know what I mean? So there's a lot there, Shawn, but try to summarize that.
No, I get it. I talked with Alan Aragon the other day, and I talked with Brad Schoenfeld. I don't know if you're familiar with both very well-regarded researchers in the realm of strength training and muscle gain. And I mean, the comment on intensity of approaching muscular failure is a very important concept. And I think one of the things, a lot of people, particularly novices, don't really know what it means to go to failure. So I mean, I think sometimes you have to put people into context and bring them to failure so they know what that actually is, and then say, okay, now dial it back 5%, and you can avoid that. But I mean, it's just one of, like, some things you don't want to go to failure doing back squats. I mean, it just doesn't make sense because you get hurt, right?
100%. Or deadlifts, isn't it?
Yeah, well, deadlifts, you just can't do another rep. I mean, I've done that before, but I mean, it's kind of like, you're not going to have something fall on you, which is interesting. But
that's true.
And then as far as, okay, so we're talking about strength training, which I think, and I'm sure you would agree, is absolutely probably one of the most important things we can do when it comes to improving our overall physical fitness and health. I mean, we talk about the different exercises. Can we do jogging? Can we do sprint training? Can we do strength training? Whatever. And I think in my perspective, it's like, get people away from sedentary behavior first. That's number one. Just get them off the couch, stop them from sitting down, because that's where most of their energy expenditure is going to be, just what they're doing all day long. And then you get them into the gym, and then you say, okay, now we're going to start with strength training. What do we do besides that? Are we doing some cardio? Are we doing some HIIT training? Are we doing some sprinting? Are we doing what are you doing besides that? Or do we need to even worry about any of that?
To be honest, I would say all in all, it really doesn't matter that much in terms of cardio. Now, obviously, if you're looking to get fit for a specific event or whatever, or you're, an endurance athlete, obviously it's very different. But really, you do get, as I'm sure you'll be aware of, you do get pretty much all the benefits anyway from lifting weights, because you're keeping your heart rate up for sustained periods. And when you're following a proper program, and, as you say, sometimes you'll go to failure. Sometimes you might be doing like some of my, 12 to 20 rep range, which is basically cardio with, maybe 30 seconds rest, so it's like the pump adaptation style training. You're actually getting all those benefits. And with strength training as well, lifting heavy, actually, you get all those benefits with your heart and but when it comes to getting your cardio to the next level, obviously, if you're looking to do a running event, you're going to have to do more running, right? More, cycling event, more cycling. But when it comes to overall health, I think movement is the key thing, really. Obviously, just moving plenty. So movement is medicine, right? So making sure you're doing plenty of movement, you're getting your sunlight and stuff like that. And when it comes to calorie expenditure as well, obviously you're going to burn thousands more calories just by moving a couple of thousand extra steps a day or doing an extra 15-minute walk. And really it's not really that important. Now, with HIIT, it can be a good tool to use, for example, with high intensity training. It can be a great tool to use, or bringing cardio in if you have a certain goal you have with fat loss, but really, you shouldn't need to use that really. And all research shows now, a new study actually with strength and diet, it's actually better for fat loss. If you focus on strength training and diet, it's actually way better for fat loss than diet and cardio, or even all three. So strength training, diet, and cardio together, the best results were always going to with strength training and diet. So that's body composition, but even overall health. I don't do any cardio. I do jiu-jitsu now. Actually, I started that last year. And I've never had any problems with cardio, even though I don't do any cardio anymore. Used to do a lot of running and stuff. If you're lifting weights properly and you're taking care of yourself and you're doing plenty of movement, you don't really need to do cardio unless you have like some sort of event. You know what I mean? In my opinion, but research points to that as well.
Yeah, there's a question one of our guests has is asking about what are your thoughts, and I guess for your thoughts about if you're on an animal-based diet, a carnivore diet, eating lots of steak and stuff like that, supplementing further for protein, I guess with whey protein, and then also adding creatine in there. Is there any utility for that, or is that just superfluous?
Yeah, I think there's a good utility for that. Creatine, 100%. I think is one of the most, best supplements really on the market. And it's the most researched as well. One of them when it comes to performance and crossover into health as well. But obviously, as you get most of that through, you don't need it if you eat in a proper animal-based diet. But if you're not getting enough through, red meat or whatever, then it's a great supplement. And to be honest, I think most people benefit anyway from taking creatine, from what I've seen with performance and even health with a lot of clients. So that's another conversation. But with protein powder, if you're not consistently hitting your protein target and you're struggling to get it in through real food, then by all means use whey protein powder, providing you're okay with dairy and stuff, of course. I think it can be an essential tool, really, if you're looking to build muscle and stuff. And really just, again, overall health and not overeat. Hitting that protein target, as we said, is really, really important. So if you're not doing it for real food, protein's a great thing to use. And creatine, I would say, 90% of people are going to benefit from taking, 3 to 5 grams a day, maybe, 5 days a week, depending on how much they train and stuff. Anyway, the only reason I don't take it now, I do notice a bit of a boost in performance, even the amount that I eat. I do notice a boost. But I just wake up in the night for a pee because of the water retention. So I just stopped taking it. It was annoying. So yeah, that answers that question.
Yeah, I think, certainly, and creatine, for the people who don't know, has benefits outside of performance. It's been shown to have cardiovascular benefits, cognitive benefits. And so it is and again, the better source is going to be getting it from food, just like the protein, because you're not only getting the amino acids, but you're also getting all the other nutrition that goes with it that supports muscle protein synthesis, including the fat, which is surprisingly, many people don't realize, but the fat has a role in muscle protein synthesis as well, particularly cholesterol. Okay, this is so if I'm training for, muscle growth, hypertrophy, which many people are, a lot of people like to look good. They want bigger muscles if they're a guy, or, maybe a lot of women want a bigger butt now for whatever reason. They're trying to, some of them are going and getting these Brazilian butt lifts, and I'm just looking at some of these things that looks ridiculous. It's like, what the hell did you just do to yourself? They'll stick.
It's the legs that give it away, right? I've noticed a lot of times the legs, they're not developed, and then it's just obvious.
Yeah, they stick.
Not that I'm looking that much. You know what I mean? That sounded a bit weird.
It's all over social media, and you look at that, and there's these women that have got these ginormous rear ends that are like, this looks like totally weird. I mean, it's like, anyway, but let's just say, there's differences. Some people have different goals. Like some people want to get stronger, a competitive power lifter, an athlete that's in a weight performance base, they've got weight classes where they don't want to get too big because they go out of their weight class, versus a bodybuilder where the goal is just to build muscle. Is there any difference in the way we need to train for either of those goals?
Yeah, so a bodybuilder wants to build muscle, or sorry, what was the other thing you said then? You said a bodybuilder wants to build muscle, just the average person who's looking to level up their physique, right?
Well, or somebody maybe want to focus more on the strength side of things, because it's, while they run similarly, they're not, the training may diverge a little bit depending on what your goal is.
That's a fantastic question. Yeah. So again, it comes down to, this is always the case, right? The body thrives off novelty. So whether you're looking to get stronger and, it could be a powerlifting event, but it could just be you want to make some serious gains in the gym, strength gains, then obviously you want to be hitting that lower rep range, right? So you want to be, let's just say 1 to 6 rep range. But the good thing is you're going to get hypertrophy from both, right? So from doing the lower rep range, so let's just say 1 to 6 reps for argument's sake, and lifting hard and heavy, and really pushing to, basically make some strength gains, you actually are going to get what they call myofibril hypertrophy, right? So that's where, the muscle fibers get thicker and stronger. that's where the muscles get thicker and stronger, basically. No, got it wrong. Where you create more muscle fibers. Sorry, that's it. So with myofibril hypertrophy, you actually develop more muscle fibers. And then when you do the hypertrophy, the 8 to 12 rep range, obviously you're going to be thickening the muscle fibers then and making them bigger and stronger. So you actually get different types of, and that's sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. So you get different types of hypertrophy from different types of rep ranges. And then you've also got what I mentioned earlier, the pump adaptation then, which is more kind of like, let's just say the 12 to 25 rep range. And you're probably resting less in between sets or doing supersets. There's kind of 3 different stimuluses there you can play with to actually build muscle and get stronger. So everyone has value. So I would say regardless of if you're looking to get your body to respond, you really want to be switching up and working with those 3 different rep ranges. But if you're looking to just purely get stronger, then I would 100% you want to focus on the lower rep range. But even then, I would say to still come out of that and get back into those other rep ranges and maybe slow down the reps. And then when you go back to the heavy lifting, you're going to get benefits then from the other types of stimulus. So, if you're going to train for powerlifting comp, that's different. But just for people listening to this, whatever rep range you're not doing basically is the one you're going to get better results with. You know what I mean? And you still get all the same benefits with strength as well. So if you go back, for example, you do a higher rep, if you listen to this now and you're doing a low rep range, you go and do like maybe a 12 to 25 rep range, rest for 30 seconds in between sets, or maybe do supersets or whatever and rest for 60, whatever, as long as it's that type of adaptation. You go back to strength training, you'll notice you've got better fitness and you've got a bit more stamina. And that going back to the cardio element, that's one thing I forgot to mention. That does have a good carryover. If you're doing some form of cardio training, even if it's once a week, you do sometimes notice that, you will notice that you actually get a bit better performance in the gym as well because you've got better lung capacity and everything else. But the problem is the cardio sends the opposite signal, so it gets confusing for the body if you do too much cardio. So hope that answers that one.
Yeah, no, it does. There's a question about your particular clients. What percentage of them are on low carb carnivore diets? And then in the ones that aren't, or how much carbohydrates are you including in ones that are maybe in the low carb space?
Yeah, so it really depends on the person. There's quite a big variety there. But in general, though, I'd say there's not a great deal. There's only probably about, 20% of my clients who are kind of eating very similar to me, really, where they're just eating mainly meat or maybe some fruit in there as well, and they're really thriving. But other people, it's like a transformational thing. You know how long this takes as well, actually, to get people to change behaviors with food and everything else. So I would say for the most part, though, the majority of my clients are probably having like under 150 grams of carbs, or at least half of them are having under 150 grams of carbs, and they're having a good wide range of fats, which are coming from, animal sources, right? And then also certain fats that come from, avocado and whatnot. And then maybe, tallow but again, coming from animal sources. So yeah, really, but it does vary a lot. And most of my clients who tend to do way better having, like I said, the protein that I mentioned, like 100, I'd say at least a gram per pound of body weight. And then having, to be honest, probably about 40 to 50% of the macros being, or 30 to 45% being coming from fats, really. And then the rest carbs. So generally, I would say if you look at a split of calories, I find most of them thrive from having, at least 40%, at least 35, 40% protein, 35 to 40% maybe fats, and then the smaller percentage, and let's just say 20% is carbohydrates, or maybe even up to 30%. But some people do a lot better with a lot of carbs as well. You know what I mean? So it does depend. Yeah,
I've noticed. It seems like a lot of people are. There's a lot of overweight and sick people out there. That's the norm, but there are. A number of people out there that are doing well athletically, getting very strong. We're seeing stronger and stronger people emerge. Is that all down to drug utilization, increased drug usage, or is there some better training things that are out there? I know that things like blood flow restriction training is relatively new. A lot of people use it in the rehab surface, but some people may say it's more effective. Maybe there's different machines, different training schemes. What do you think is driving some of the performance benefits today versus like maybe, like when I was competing 20 some years ago, it was unusual to see somebody that was deadlifting, 800 pounds. That was pretty exceptional. And today there's quite a few people that can do that. What do you think the difference is? Is it just a lot of drugs maybe, or what's going on?
Fantastic question. I want to use rugby as a good analogy here, and I'm sure you'll relate to this because you said 20 years ago, and I bet you can remember, right? When you were playing rugby, if you look at the size of rugby players and how hard they're hitting nowadays, they were hitting hard. Don't get me wrong, Shawn. I'm taking nothing away from you, especially in New Zealand, they were hitting hard. But you know what I mean? Nowadays, like the size of the players and the athletes as well, you know what I mean? So it's insane. But yeah, looking at performance, I think there's a lot of factors that come into that. I think obviously, knowledge and everything else with supplementation and stuff like that. But I do think a big part, it's actually surprising how many people are utilizing, drugs and even, testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, and utilizing those things nowadays. So I think that does play a big part when it comes to the performance element, because there's so many, even with jiu-jitsu, I've noticed a lot of people, it's actually, it's more common than not, to be honest. But I think there's other factors as well. Just again, knowledge. I think a lot of people are competing nowadays as well in, powerlifting and jiu-jitsu and all that kind of stuff now, as mainstream bodybuilding competitions as well. Like every Tom, Dick and Harry are doing it. So I feel like that's all of those things become more popular, which I think is driving people more. But yeah, I think, people who are really thriving, I think it's just because they've really kind of like optimize the way they're living and their nutrition. Because as you know, you can take drugs and everything else to get that extra edge and actually get better performance benefits. But I think there's kind of like extremes of people nowadays, right? I feel like it's more extreme than ever, especially, I guess, in America. You've got obesity epidemic, and then you've got a handful of people in comparison who are really thriving and getting great performance benefits. So I think supplementation plays a part, but that's kind of like 10% of it. I think the big rocks, again, are just like the training, nutrition, and the lifestyle of the individual, because there's no way around that really when it comes to performing really well. But then a big chunk of that is definitely PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, and, the likes of TRT and all those kind of things, which are benefiting a lot of people,
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, depending on what you mean by benefit, there's still a lot of people getting stronger with that. I mean, I start seeing, when I start seeing 20-year-olds saying they're on TRT for, because I'm skeptical as to why they're taking it other than just to get performance benefits. But there is, I mean, when I look at like track and field, my oldest daughter is a pretty good track athlete. So I'm looking into some of the stuff, and they're literally having people run in kind of almost wind tunnels to help do the overspeed training. They've got external skeletons they put on people to have them run faster. So there's all this neat technology that's emerging for these athletes, and so I suspect some of it's going on in the, in the advanced levels of bodybuilding. That's, I'm sure it's having an impact. I mean, but I guess certainly you have to be naive to think drug usage doesn't have a significant role here. But
definitely. Can I just clarify on that point, Shawn, as well? So I just wanted to clarify on TRT. Yeah, what I meant by benefit is, like, I know all the people who've taken it in their 40s, and I know you haven't, and they've had some benefit from it. You know what I mean? And they're like us, and really, really healthy as well. And they had it because and my one friend, his libido was good. So he just said, no, I'm fine. And he had all these issues, and he said, no, I didn't even bother getting it checked up because my libido was great. But then he got it checked up and he realized actually, and he's really, but again, though, I think people in their 20s and stuff, I just want to clarify, no, you need to focus on those big rocks and be consistent with those things before you even look into that stuff. I don't know why people jump the gun so much,
Yeah, and and I agree. I mean, I think I would even put that age much later than 20. I think most people 30s, 40s, 50s probably don't.
Yeah.
But what, and I, like I said, I guess I'll dig into this a little more because we're talking about, you said, you did bodybuilding, you did it without drugs. Why did you go that route? Why didn't you? Because so many people are using it. You obviously are going to get a better result with the drugs. What made you decide not to do that?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Shawn, as well, I actually competed in a non-tested federation. So 70% of the other guys, especially when I got to the pro level, 70, 80%, maybe even 90 were on gear, right? So the good thing with me is obviously I've been lifting for a long time. I've got good genetics as well. And I knew, like, because I wasn't in the muscle, I was in this muscle model, and then there was fitness model. I could never compete in the muscle model because obviously I would need gear to have that much muscle mass on my body. So I knew that I could compete at that level. I'm not going to lie if I said I wasn't tempted, though. I've definitely been tempted several times. Obviously, I'm very competitive, but I thought, for what it's worth, and I saw the damage that it was doing to people as well, because. And another thing I wanted to talk on real quick, I saw more kind of, eating disorders and drug use and just bad stuff going on in that world. You know what I mean? Especially with eating disorders than I saw in the hundreds of clients that I've coached over the last kind of 15 to 18 years, right? So it just goes to show there's a dark side to that world. But I didn't want to go over to that side because I knew what I'm like as well and what most people are like. What I see is when people do gear once, then they always got that kind of psychological thing of, okay, I might as well just take this. And then I didn't want to go down that road. And I got top 10 in the world. There's like 40 people. I got top 10 in the world without it. But yeah, so I was tempted, but I thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want all those benefits, all those detriments later down the line. And it's already a lot of stress on the body, what you're doing, you can already do irreversible damage from competing. It's not a healthy thing to do. I did like 9 competitions. So I thought, do I really want to add that extra log to the fire now and potentially cause more damage? But I was definitely tempted, and I maybe would have got a higher result if I did take it. The likelihood is I Well, probably definitely would have actually, but it wasn't worth, for a plastic trophy, it just wasn't worth it to me.
And when you mentioned, eating disorders and potential damage, I mean, what did you see? I mean, what kind of problems were people having?
Yeah, so what you mentioned was a big one, orthorexia, where people were just so obsessed with like tracking their food and they had such an inflexible mindset. I was just talking to my clients about this now. Like, that's the key thing. However way you approach it, you need to have a flexible mindset. They were so inflexible and so focused on sticking to macros and calories that's all they were focused on. And then they would have one day where they didn't stick to their macros, and then they would just hit the off button and binge eat on a regular basis. You know what I mean? And I used to struggle a bit with that myself, I'm honest. But I saw that. I saw, just basically eating in terms of like just such an erratic behaviors with food, where they would restrict and then overeat. Obviously, I fell into that camp a little bit myself, like I said. But I also saw just in general, just like so many, their life was just imbalanced, a lot of them. You know what I mean? Like their relationships were suffering because they were so obsessed with themselves and like taking selfies and jumping on stage and basically just, like I said, relationship with food as well, in terms of just binge eating. That was a very common one, is just binge eating disorder, right? I think in Australia, only 50% of eating disorders are categorized under the binge eating disorder. And I saw lots of that going on. And then I just saw just a lot of stuff which just wasn't real. Like, like obviously they show you on Instagram one thing, and then you see them on Instagram, for example, then you meet them in person and you're like, they're nothing like what I thought they would be. You know what I mean? Like their personality is different. You know what I mean? Like they don't look healthy at all. And then you see all the other stuff behind the scenes then that I talked about. So there's lots of stuff, but definitely binge eating disorder was very, very common. And orthorexia, just for the listeners, what Shawn mentioned, is basically when you get really obsessed with being kind of healthy, quote unquote healthy, where you're weighing your food, you're getting so obsessed on the macros and the numbers that actually you're not paying attention to your health. And then, you're getting emotional issues then, which come with that,
Yeah, certainly that's an issue that's very real in that community. When you get your clients, is there something? I mean, are you assessing them for food addictions, or what kind of issues are you looking at that you can try to address?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we meet them where they're at, basically, right? So we meet them where they're at, and I look at, firstly, I like for most clients, to be honest, at least to go for a period. Again, this is not a destination for anyone in terms of tracking food. I don't think anyone should have that as a long-term thing, right? It's more a case of just awareness, right? So I want to meet them where they're at. I want to see how they're eating. So I'll get them to track maybe for a few days or a week, sometime longer than that. It might be for 3 or 4 months, you know what I mean? Or whatever, just so I can see where they're at with their food. And then I'll go, right, okay, this is what we need to improve on. So, again, a common one could be, this is hit and miss, but say 50% of the time they're under eating protein. Okay, let's add more of these foods in. Let's add more, ruminant meat in, for example, right? Whether that be beef, deer, bison, those kind of things. So then they're getting all the nutritional benefits out of that as well, and the protein and stuff like that. And then I'll just look at the amount of whole foods they're eating versus ultra processed foods, right? And that's a big one. And because the reality is, there's a good study done actually where it's like ultra processed foods make you overeat by 500 calories a day, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm always communicating this very simple thing. It's simple on paper, but behavior changes, we all know, is very, very hard. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at how can we change behaviors with food and make permanent changes to their lifestyle, not temporary, permanent changes that they can stick to. So with food, for example, is right, how much processed foods are they eating? Okay, right. So what we need to do is maybe need to keep those foods out of the house, might be the first thing for some people. They might overeat certain foods. Let's keep those place a barrier in the way, keep them out of the house. And then generally they eat a lot less of them. So I'm always looking at, right, how can we get them to eat more whole foods, generally more animal-based foods as well, right? So they can get most things they need then on a nutritional level, and really just kind of build from there, really. But yeah, as I say, a lot of my clients I take on now are already at a good level and they're eating predominantly whole foods. So with those people, it'll just be like looking at the fats and protein a lot. So looking at the variety of fatty acids and stuff that they get in from food and making changes there and adding and maybe changing the fat profile a bit, because people are not aware of the vegetable oil thing as well. I think that's a big one that a lot of people are still not aware of. And they're actually like shocked when I tell them, like the canola oils and the trans fats and stuff like that in terms of being pro-inflammatory. So some people are having them and they just weren't aware of it. So it's replacing them with better types of fats that come from generally, if they're using if they're eating vegetable oils, for example, let's replace that with beef tallow or, ghee oil or those kind of things. So yeah, those kind of things really it all comes down to eating more whole foods, hitting protein, and then really changing those behaviors. So it could be something like, alcohol, like their relationship with alcohol, right? How can we kind of improve that? And then delving deeper into, why they're using alcohol, for example, and how we can replace that behavior, how we can get that feeling that you get from alcohol from something else, whether that be meditation or a hobby that you like. So again, it really depends on the person, but they're kind of the things that come to mind. It always comes down to behavior change and, making changes to the lifestyle that they can stick to. But it's all about sustainability, Shawn, as you know, right? So it doesn't happen overnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're very right. It's not hard to put something on paper, but to get people to execute it and then consistently do it and not fall back is a challenge. And I think everybody that's been in this game for long enough realizes that. We are unfortunately, Martin, running out of time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Tell us, do you have some social media or where do people go to find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So social media, Instagram is my best handle. So it's at Martin Silva Fitness. Okay. Is my Instagram handle. And then just my podcast as well. There's some great content on there. Optimize is spelled with an S-E on the end, not Z-E, right? Because I know in America you spell it with a Z-E. So Optimize Your Body is the podcast. And they're kind of my main two platforms, really, Shawn.
Okay. Well, we'll have to have somebody go check that out. Martin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Enjoy your beautiful summer day down there, because you guys are in the middle of summer down there in Sydney. And
that's right, man. That's right. Yeah.
Get out.
Got the tango going strong right now, Shawn. So I want to keep that going.
Good for you. I'm in the middle of dead of winter and it's cold and rainy and on and on. But anyway, thanks so much. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks a lot for having me on, man. That was an absolute honor to be on here. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. I'll see some of you guys tomorrow morning. Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Take care.